My name is Zach Stewart, and I'm going to be your producer for today. So I'm just going to run through a couple quick housekeeping slides before we get started. I want to let you know that this event is being recorded and audio is now broadcasting, so you should be hearing my voice. We are providing audio via your computer speakers today, but if you need any help with that, just let us know in the All Questions box right underneath the slides, and we can also give you a call-in number if your computer speakers are not working. We do ask you to use the computer speakers if possible, and if you're hearing my voice through both the phone and the computer, you can hang up your phone. The views, opinions, and content expressed in this presentation and discussion do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of the Center for Mental Health Services or the Center for Substance Abuse Treatment, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. We are providing captioning for today's webinar. You can click the link on the screen here to access those live captions, and we've also provided this link in the top of that All Questions box right underneath the slides. Captions will open in a new window or tab you can position anywhere you like on your screen, and you can adjust the size, color, and speed of the captions. Your line is going to be muted for today's presentation, but we do have some ways for you to communicate with us. First, we have the chat box. That's located right underneath my picture to the right of the slides there. Comments in the chat box do not reflect the views or policies of the presenters, CMHS, CSAT, SAMHSA, or HHS, and anything you type in that box is visible to everybody in the room. And then, as I mentioned, we do have that All Questions box located right underneath the slides. Please do type all of your content and your tech questions into that box. We will answer your tech questions right in that box, and then we'll save your content questions for the Q&A session of today's event. Also, to the left of that box, we do have a copy of today's slide deck, which you can download. You just click on where it says today's slide deck, then hit that download file button. And lastly, if you want to increase the size of the slides at any time, you can do so by clicking on the 4 outward-facing arrows located right above in the upper right corner of the slide deck. And then you can just hit Escape on your keyboard to go back to the normal view. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to today's moderator, Sherry Downing, Deputy Director of the Homeless and Housing Resource Network. Sherry, you can take it away.
Thanks, Zach. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to have you here, and I am so excited to bring you our wonderful presenters. First of all, though, I would like to introduce Doreen Gross, who is the PATH Program Coordinator in SAMHSA's Division of State and Community Systems Development. Ms. Gross has more than 20 years of experience working with grants and contracts portfolios associated with people who are at risk of or experiencing homelessness, including PATH, the Treatment for Individuals Experiencing Homelessness, grants, cooperative agreements to benefit homeless individuals, or CABI, and the Services in Support of Housing grant programs. She has worked with many of the federal partners, including U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Administration for Children, Youth, and Families, and many others to coordinate services, policies, and housing and homeless-related activities. Ms. Gross served as Contracting Officer Representative, or the CORE, on the Homeless and Housing Resource Network Technical Assistance Contract that provides technical assistance and support to federal, state, and local agencies and many others. Ms. Gross holds a master's in social work from the University of Maryland. Doreen, would you like to come on?
Yes, thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much for that introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. As the nation reopens, we are keeping a careful eye on the situation and want to help keep you all safe. So before we get into today's webinar, I'd like to remind you that you can check samhsa.gov/coronavirus for helpful information. In communities nationwide, there is a considerable overlap between criminal justice and homelessness. And just, by way of statistics here, in recent years, Phoenix found that 59 individuals that 59 individuals, almost all of whom were experiencing homelessness, accounted for over 1,000 bookings. And then in San Diego, it was reported that 1 in 4 jail inmates was experiencing homelessness at the time of arrest, and that 70% of the people experiencing unsheltered homelessness had been in jails or prisons in their lifetime. In Chicago, 1 in 10 people experiencing homelessness came directly from jail or prison. So as you can see, communities nationwide are working to break the cycle, and we are learning what works. So today we have 2 very different perspectives of these issues. From the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, we have someone who will give an overview of the federal efforts to support partnerships between law enforcement and homeless service communities. And our second presenter will give a first-hand look at how Miami-Dade County has reduced daily jail populations by diverting people to needed mental health treatment. Together, their perspectives should inform and inspire you. So on behalf of all of us here at SAMHSA, thank you all for the work you do, and feel free to reach out to us for more information. I will turn you back over to Sherry, who will introduce our presenters. Sherry?
Thank you. Thanks, Doreen. Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction, and I think an important reminder of the number of people who have criminal justice backgrounds and engage with the homelessness system. So today, to talk to you about these issues, we have Roxana Weiss, ESG, is a former Maryland prosecutor dedicated to changing the narrative for vulnerable populations. She currently serves as the Chief of Staff for the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, and there she leads the Legislative Affairs portfolio. She previously served as a policy and program analyst focusing on youth, criminal justice, racial equity, and ending homelessness for families. She has served in the Baltimore Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice and led efforts to reduce truancy as an assistant state's attorney for the Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office, and has law clerked for the Maryland Attorney General's Office. She volunteers her time on numerous boards, including the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services State Advisory Board, where she serves as chair of the Pathways to Education Subcommittee. Roxana earned her Juris Doctor from the University of Baltimore School of Law. We also have Justin Volpe. We've had him here before, and he is a terrific speaker. Justin is a certified recovery peer support specialist working with the 11th Judicial Circuit Criminal Mental Health Project Jail Diversion Program, and he's been doing that since 2008. As a successful graduate of As a successful graduate of the program, Justin has firsthand knowledge of the importance of ensuring the availability of timely, high-quality behavioral health treatment services in the community. After experiencing a series of psychiatric healthcare crises several years ago, which led to a period of unstable living conditions, disruption of family and social supports, and brief involvement in the justice system, Justin became involved in treatment and support services in the community. And today, he enjoys a full and productive life in recovery, serving as an inspiration and role model for many others. Justin has also served as a national consultant since 2011 and has traveled the country sharing his message of hope and inspiration. Justin has helped train over 2,500 CIT officers in Miami-Dade County since 2008, and he has assisted in getting over 1,000 people out of jail. His experiences make him uniquely qualified to speak to the importance of ensuring people have access to care when and where they need it, as well as the unfortunate consequences that can result when they do not. Having overcome significant challenges, Justin is now married with a son, and he is also a homeowner. Welcome, Justin. So with that, I would like to say that here's our agenda for the day. We'll do a little bit of an overview of roles and homeless service partnerships, including strategies and community examples. We'll look at the Miami-Dade County's jail diversion program. We'll spend some time with questions and answers and then do a closing. What we hope you'll be able to take away from this webinar is a better understanding of the benefits of law enforcement and homeless service partnerships. And we hope that at the end of this webinar, you'll be able to describe how 3 communities work together to help people experiencing homelessness and serious mental illness or co-occurring disorders. And with that, I will hand it over to Roxana, who will take it away. Take it away, Roxana.
Thank you, Sherry. Greetings, everyone. Today, I plan to cover a number of different topics. Let me go over to the next slide. So I'll provide a quick background on my federal agency, the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness, otherwise known as USICH, an understanding of the roles of law enforcement and homeless service partnerships, the convening we held with the Council of State Governments that brought together these 2 groups, strategies to strengthen this type of partnership, and consultation as a key component of this work. So with USICH, we are an independent federal agency within the executive branch. We've been in existence since the late 1980s and are charged with driving the federal response to ending homelessness, creating national partnerships at every level of government, as well as the private sector, and maximizing the effectiveness of the federal government in contributing to the end of homelessness. Although we do not administer programs, we do lift up the importance of ending homelessness throughout our spheres of influence. We are comprised of a DC-based policy team that develops and coordinates strategies across federal agencies. We also have a national initiatives team that works with communities directly in the field in order to raise up issues that may be unique to communities. We have a council made up of 19 federal agencies that includes the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Labor, Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Education, and many more. Our current approach to addressing homelessness is trauma-informed care plus affordable housing equals housing stability. Through that lens, our work is informed, including our response to addressing COVID-19 for our most vulnerable populations. I do also want to acknowledge that this presentation is being given on the backdrop of an awakening this country is having via public discourse on police relations with the Black community. This is a hard time for many of us, and by having open, honest conversations and committing and implementing actionable change, that is where transformation lies. For USICH's work in the criminal justice space, it is important to highlight the relationship between homelessness and incarceration. What we know so far, law enforcement often serves as a first responder in communities and in the midst of crisis. While we know what the role of law enforcement shouldn't be, there is a need in the field to learn more about where law enforcement can be effective partners and the need to better clarify what their role should be when working with homelessness service providers and other providers. Federal partners recognize the overlap between law enforcement and the homelessness service system. Anywhere from 25 to 50% of people experiencing homelessness have a history of incarceration. Annually, over 600,000 individuals return home from prisons, and more than 50,000 individuals enter into homeless shelters from incarceration. People experiencing homelessness typically enter the criminal justice system for minor offenses that are often the direct result of being homeless, or such as public disorder or petty theft. Both incarceration and homelessness disproportionately impact Black people, indigenous people, and people of color. We also know it is important to shorten the length of time people experience homelessness, and that, unfortunately, repeated incarceration correlates with the amount of time someone may continue to experience homelessness. The Department of Justice released guidance on this topic, and the Department of Justice's community-oriented policing section, as well as federal partners, have expressed interest in this work. We know there's more work that needs to be done. USICH continues to pursue steps to reduce criminal justice system involvement among people experiencing homelessness, both by reducing criminalization of homelessness and the return of people from correctional settings into homelessness. It's important for stakeholders and communities to have a base level understanding of the roles and challenges both sectors deal with, while understanding the shared commonalities. For homelessness service leaders, they view their role as leading a community's response to ending homelessness. And it's also important to understand their challenges. A big challenge is addressing the recidivism of people experiencing homelessness. Cycling from homelessness to arrest does not contribute to the goal of ending homelessness. For law enforcement, specifically police officers, they view their role as first responders, addressing public safety needs and protection. The lack of guidance on effective responses and limited housing resources contributed to the challenges police officers face when responding to calls for service when it comes to people experiencing homelessness. As an agency, we are expanding our knowledge on the role of law enforcement in mental health responses. We have seen positive practice of police officers working in concert with behavioral health professionals. Homeless outreach teams, or HOT teams, that work with trained behavioral health and mental health professionals are examples that come to mind. During this presentation, you will hear repeated the importance of training, collaboration, and understanding the distinct roles. Back in 2018, we held a national convening on law enforcement and homeless service partnerships in ending homelessness in conjunction with the Council of State Government's Justice Center. This convening brought together police officers and law enforcement, as well as homelessness service representatives from 10 communities across the country to discuss how to strengthen these partnerships when responding to homelessness among people who do get in contact with law enforcement. The participating communities are listed on the slide deck. Major themes that came from this convening included the importance of small wins when it comes to maintaining momentum, the importance of community engagement, interest in getting more technical assistance in this area, and the need to train law enforcement while also documenting these practices within policies and procedures. It is important for police officers to have a full understanding of their roles when it comes to addressing homelessness, understanding the need that exists, and how best to respond, especially as the public discourse is centering on these kinds of things today. Since the convening, USICH participated in a webinar on philanthropy's role in supporting law enforcement and homeless service partnerships. We've been holding conversations with federal partners on potential joint federal technical assistance strategy and policy windows. We've released a policy paper that highlights the learnings from the convening as well as from some of the communities that are highlighted, which can be found on our website, www.usich.gov. Our current executive director participated in the Presidential Commission on Law Enforcement and the Administration of Justice conference discussing HOT teams. USICH has also presented to the Police Treatment and Community Collaborative Community at their national conference, and we're also just continuing to learn and grow our own knowledge base. And so from this convening and from this policy paper, I plan to highlight the 5 strategies that you all can take away today. On the slide deck, you can see it there, and I'll be outlining it through this presentation. With this first strategy, to develop shared goals, clearly defining roles, and engaging other critical stakeholders. This gets implemented through prioritizing training of police personnel in effective outreach and engagement approaches. Having public officials and local leaders take their role in elevating the issue of homelessness and recidivism publicly, whether it's through public talking points, press releases, or walking through the communities that are impacted. Ensuring that the voices and perspectives of people with lived experience, especially those of color, are centered in the development of goals and outreach plans. The second strategy is to use data to understand local need and assess progress. This can get implemented through having the local law enforcement agencies use their data on calls for service or their arrest data to quantify the rate of occurrence involving people who are either living in encampments or otherwise experiencing unsheltered homelessness. We stress the importance of understanding the realities of sharing data as a challenge that communities may face when it comes to people experiencing homelessness, because they may not otherwise want to share their private data with law enforcement. So understanding that need to navigate that sensitivity. and having the balance between ensuring privacy with the urgency of it connecting people to important services and housing opportunities. The third strategy is to review and align local laws as well as ordinances to support the goals of partnership. This can get implemented through reviewing legislation to determine whether it furthers barriers to accessing safe and stable housing, or if there is a misalignment, considering amending or repealing instances where barriers exist to reduce the barriers for those experiencing homelessness. Another thing to keep in mind, the Martin versus Boise case, this, for those who may not be aware, this was a case where the Homelessness Service System advocates challenged the city of Boise local ordinance that penalized sleeping in public. This can be seen as an opportunity for local legislators, local leaders, to review current laws that may inadvertently and disproportionately criminalize behavior of people experiencing homelessness and taking active and proactive measures to reduce that. The fourth strategy is to equip law enforcement officers and their homelessness service system counterparts with protocols and training. Again, this is reiterating the importance of training, implementation, and more training. Ensuring that policies reflect evidence-based practices for addressing the needs of those experiencing homelessness is also pretty essential. The final strategy is ultimately diverting people from the criminal justice system while supporting long-term stabilization. This gets implemented through long-term solutions. So it's important to think of short-term outcomes and short-term solutions, but we want to make sure that things don't continue on it in a cycle way, as well as just having strategies for responding to encampments with best practices. When police officers and the homelessness service sector successfully collaborate, the community benefits. And they benefit through having reduced arrest rates, fewer repeat encounters, and a pathway to stable housing. Communities should also determine what strategies will best address their specific needs. Speaking to the people with lived experience, again, is very critical. We have regional coordinators that are part of the national initiatives team that can help with implementing these strategies. Their contact information is listed on our website, www.usish.gov. Now, I do want to highlight two communities that have strengthened their partnerships between their police departments and their homelessness service providers: Wichita, Kansas, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And while there are many communities that have been working toward this goal, these identified localities have a number of tools and strategies communities can consider when strengthening their own approaches. In Wichita, Kansas, the police department and the homelessness service system have been working together for nearly a decade to address unsheltered homelessness. So, a little while back, in 2011, a police officer led an effort to partner with the homelessness service system to create their own hot team. The hot team brings the resources the homelessness service system has to the street. This involves educating those that are living out in the street, otherwise known as experiencing unsheltered homelessness, about available services and housing resources in their own communities, followed by connecting them to resources, so doing that warm handoff. Hot teams seek to help individuals out of jail through diversionary and deflection efforts. Hot team members conduct outreach in places where unsheltered homelessness is likely to occur. So think of your bridges or your abandoned buildings. The hot team plays that connecting role. They also engage in case conferencing with the homelessness service system, and they share information on cases in order to facilitate coordination of services. Through the collaborative efforts, the Wichita Hot Team identified the need to connect the unsheltered population to substance use disorder services. So just thinking, with the ongoing relationship building and communication, there was a need that was identified, and they were able to help meet that need. The HOT team expanded its outreach to connect people to substance use treatment and case management services as a result. Since the HOT team's inception, the Wichita Police Department has seen an annual decline in calls for service for people experiencing homelessness. The secret to their successful efforts relied on buying from leadership in multiple fields, comprehensive policies, and again, training for officers. And so switching gears a little bit, in Philadelphia, they have a pioneering model when it comes to responding to encampments. A little close to 20 years ago, the residents of the city raised concerns about unsheltered homelessness and panhandling. In response, the city adopted the Sidewalk Behavior Ordinance. This ordinance formalized a partnership between the homelessness service sector and police in addressing street homelessness and mandated that a person on the street in need of services must be connected with services and housing, even if law enforcement is a first responder. In Philadelphia, the city has a quote-unquote service detail, essentially a specialized team dedicated to working with people on the street. That's where you have your behavioral health specialists, your mental health providers included. The service detail responsibilities under the statute include determining whether a person stopped under this ordinance needs help from a social services or medical provider, contacting outreach workers to evaluate the person in need of social services, coordinating with the outreach worker to get the person to appropriate services, including offering transportation, and participating in training such as CIT training, which I know Justin will talk a bit more later. And having training that can help with handling certain situations where when people ultimately come into crisis. This partnership has evolved with the community needs. In 2018, a number of agencies worked together to launch the Encampment Resolution Pilot Program, an effort to humanely respond to encampments in the Kensington neighborhood. The pilot featured collaboration between behavioral health and the homelessness service system sector, police, force, housing, and substance use treatment providers. And at the center of this kind of cross-system collaboration has been data sharing. Philadelphia also provided a comprehensive continuum of services and affordable housing to people experiencing unsheltered homelessness who interact with law enforcement. This city has invested in its recover housing model, so it's been increasing supplies for that. And again, I do want to wrap this up by just saying these are just two communities that have been able to strengthen their partnerships through innovative approaches. And in the backdrop of COVID-19 and thinking of innovation, now may be the opportunity to see what can happen to positively meet people where they are and collaboratively work with them. So if you are interested in learning more, I encourage you to check out our website, www.usich.gov. We do have a biweekly newsletter, which you can sign up through the website. And if you have questions that may not be addressed in this webinar today, please feel free to reach out to me via email. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to kick it off to Justin and take it from here.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, Roxana. My name is Justin Volpe, and I want to share a little bit about what we're doing here in Miami-Dade County. And I think we've got a great picture of what's going on nationally and resources that hopefully keep growing. As said in my bio, I've worked for the jail diversion program in Miami-Dade County, which diverts people with low-level felonies and all misdemeanor crimes that have a diagnosis of serious mental health issues and are compliant with medication in jail to the community. My job there is a peer specialist. I work primarily in the community. I have not in the past 3 months. I've been doing everything from home. We are not allowed face-to-face contact, which has made our job quite difficult in transitioning people out of incarceration. But the program is amazing. We serve probably 500 to 800 people a year, and we get them into housing, treatment programs, and we do follow-ups that keep their court cases open through the length of their treatment. If they successfully complete the treatment, oftentimes their cases are dismissed or given a withheld adjudication. And this makes the community stronger because we're seeing less and less people go back. Once they get a taste of recovery, they're given a chance, an opportunity, and they're able to get meaningful employment and housing. And we have barriers as well, and I'm going to be talking about some of them. I've worked here since 2008. I was certified in 2009 as a peer specialist, and I'm going to tell you briefly how I got here. I'm a RAP, Wellness Recovery Action Plan trainer, Crisis Prevention Institute, CPI, trainer and instructor, which is for nonviolent crisis interventions with staff. And RAP, I don't know if you guys know, is a great self-help book for people with lived experience, and even if you do not have a RAP plan, I highly recommend it. I've been blessed to be able to travel and see what is going on around the country right now. And for the past 10 or so years, it's amazing. It's amazing to see, that we're not so different, and that each community is trying something different. And what I've learned from traveling is that we all have different pieces to the puzzle, and we all have different barriers. Every community has different barriers. You would think a county like Miami-Dade County that has a booming economy with tourism, we wouldn't have any problems, but that's not the case. But what I can tell you is that despite almost 3 million in population in Miami-Dade County, we only have around 1,000 people that are chronically homeless, as per the Homeless Trust. Part of that is CIT. CIT, there's two parts to the 11th Judicial Criminal Mental Health Project. One is post-booking, which is jail diversion, which I work for, and the other is CIT, which is pre-booking. And we have been doing this training close to 20 years with our officers, and I am just a speaker, not the main coordinator. We do have the main coordinator listening in today, and I want to say hi to my other coworkers that are listening. And it's a great training, and it diverts somebody that's even committing up to a misdemeanor offense to the hospital if they meet that Baker Act or involuntary hospitalization criteria. Once they're linked to the hospital, they can be linked to outside treatment. What is a huge barrier, which I'm going to get to, is divert to what? And they get people off the street, and oftentimes there's not enough resources, community-based, to keep these people from, recycling. There's some articles that I've been featured in, which I've been blessed to do, is Washington Post, New York Times, The Herald, and I really want you guys, if you download this slide, to check out our documentary. It aired April of this year, and it's on PBS streaming for free. And if we get time, I'll try to show a clip. So Miami-Dade County Jail is the largest psychiatric institute in the state of Florida. On any given day, there's 2,400 of the 4,300 that are there that are classified as having some sort of mental illness. Right now, that number of 4,300 for the daily population is lower due to COVID, and they're releasing people with mostly misdemeanors, nonviolent property offenses, to the street the next day to keep the jail population down. And that has made our job currently much more difficult to identify misdemeanor clients in need of treatment when they can get out of jail the next day instead of being stabilized in jail, even though jail is not a place for treatment. But this is a big cost. It costs $636,000 per day, over $230 million per year. We talk about housing and homelessness and criminal justice involved. I could see a lot better way to spend that money. We did a study over a 5-year period to see the heavy users of our community in Miami-Dade County, and we projected a very large list, and there would be a lot of people, and it turned out of all the bookings in a 5-year period, it was identified of 97 people. That's it, 97 people, over 2,200 bookings in the jail, 27,000 days in jail, and 13,000 days in crisis, state hospital, or emergency rooms. They spent nearly 2/3 of their year, on average, either in jail or in a hospital. And this is not the way we need to be dealing with this crisis and why we need more stable housing and community connectiveness to give people better life. So today we have over 7,500 officers trained in 36 different municipalities in Miami-Dade County that receive a 40-hour training. We have seen, since the training has really blossomed, that from an 8-year period in city of Miami and Miami-Dade County, which is very confusing because people think it's all Miami here, but there's actually individual cities that, despite they call it Miami. So just Miami-Dade County, which is like the sheriff's department, and city of Miami had over 91,000 calls. And as a result of that, over those 8 years, there was only 152 arrests. So I'd like to think that, we're trying different avenues, and we're seeing recovery. And we're seeing recovery and people buying in that they can recover too. And, part of my training with the police officers is sharing my personal experience. And sometimes people need to hear it if they haven't been through it so they can relate. Our post-booking, the jail diversion program, of our successful graduates, we've seen, recidivism go down about 75%. And we were able to close the jail a few years ago, which is the women's annex, that's saving the county $12 million a year. These are some of the stats of our calls for City of Miami and Miami-Dade County. I would like you to take a deeper look at it if you download the slides. But if you look at things like consumer injuries and officer injuries, they are down significantly since the blossoming of the program, since before statistics were taken, and we have seen police-involved shootings go down dramatically to maybe every couple of months to maybe a few in a couple of years. So that's amazing. So our program, this is the pieces of our program. It's not, as simple as it seems. We have a felony program. There's a team leader on the felony and misdemeanor program. They both have court specialists that report to court and report with the clients and the treatment teams, getting the client on the right path. With those court specialists and team leaders, there are peer specialists working in the community and making those transitions that are so difficult, where people often slip between the cracks. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the next slide, what peer recovery specialists and the program, some of our barriers are in the community. We have a assisted outpatient treatment program, which is for misdemeanor clients that mandates them to a local public hospital to take medication and to receive treatment for 3 months at least in the community under this grant. This is helping some of the people that need the help the most and get them an opportunity to stabilize on medication. These are people that would refuse medication in jail. We have forensic hospital diversion program. So we have, we talk about competency and what we spend annually on competency in Florida. And competency isn't what we would think it is. It's not, it's to know who your lawyer is, to know who the judge is, just to know how a court proceedings. And we spend millions of dollars just to get people back to court so they can be sentenced. And we have a program called MD Fact, which is outside of Jackson Memorial Hospital. And they do a great job, and it's a great collaboration, and it saves a lot of tax dollars compared to the traditional forensic programs. We have a SOAR, which is SSDI, Outreach, Access, and Recovery Entitlement Program. If our clients are severely disabled and have a long history of serious mental health issues, we are able to apply for disability for them, which will give them possibly income to pay for housing moving forward, plus insurance, because Florida is not a Medicaid expanded state. So to receive treatment continually and for people to get their medication, this really helps. This really helps for the people that need it. And we don't apply for everybody. We only apply for good cases, and we have around a 90% success rate in about 3 months because we're only picking the good cases to go with. We have a jail in-reach team, which we have people identifying people in Miami-Dade County Jail, social workers, and people visiting them to do assessments, assessors to fast track them to treatment. So we have, ears on the inside so we can find out who we need to serve. Because despite all the people we do serve, there are a large gap of people that need the help and aren't getting it. And I think that stands in every community. And we could say we all can do a better job, and we all can see, that everybody deserves a chance of recovery. So I have a little poll question here. I'd like you to take it if you're listening. How well is your community tackling homelessness with people living with mental health issues? Excellent, good, fair, or poor? Well, we have a lot of good and fair, and a good portion of poor. Excellent's not looking too good. I'll leave it up for a couple more seconds. You guys can see that. Okay. So roughly, put it in the poll, not the public chat, so we can get your response. Okay, it's closed. So it looks like about half people think they're doing a fair job, about a quarter think they're good, and about a quarter poor. So we see where there needs to be improvement. And that's just a common sense issue. And, some of the things that we're dealing with in a community is we expect people, because we're giving them this opportunity at treatment through court, to be perfect. And I think that is asking too much of anybody that has some of these issues that I have listed. A majority of the people with serious mental health issues and criminal justice involvement have experienced trauma their whole life. We're asking somebody that's maybe in their 40s or 50s that's used drugs and alcohol their whole life, 25, 30 years, that now that you're with us, you have to be perfect. You have to jump through hoops, and you have to be on your appointment on time. You have to meet with your probation officer. You have to do this, this, or this, and this. And, we all know recovery doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And it's a lifelong journey. And, we need to be compassionate with the people that we serve and give people that 15th try, that 16th try. Unfortunately, working with the court, they do not believe in 20 tries, but we do keep trying. Some of the cases that are misdemeanor are more lenient than some of the felonies as well, depending on the state attorney. We're dealing with people that have grown up in poverty, and that if they don't have access to disability, that they have a criminal record which stops them from getting good jobs. And if they need to go back to school to get those good jobs, they need housing in the meantime. And for the people that have gone to school and worked full time, we all know how difficult that can be, let alone when you're battling a serious mental illness. The chronic homelessness as the result of all this is staggering. And though we only have, say, 1,000 people that are chronically homeless, we have so many people in transitional type housing, which I don't think you and I would like to live in there very long. And how can you blame our clients? We often have people renting out houses, shared rooms that are $500 to $600 a month. and say their Social Security check's only $750, or they can only work part-time, that's difficult. And that's difficult to promote recovery and to want to do better for yourself when that's all you think that's out there. And there's a lot of that revolving cycle. And I think everybody should have access to affordable housing. And if we use some of the money that we spend on incarceration, that we could keep these people out of the criminal justice system. We do work with a lot of good housing programs, too. We work with rapid rehousing, and that is able to put the first, last, and security deposit for a client and help with their rent and put them in a apartment with a roommate or a house, you know. And in Miami, housing is very expensive. Even ALFs, for the people that qualify, their Social Security checks don't even cover a fraction of the ALF. Right now, an ALF in Miami-Dade County can be anywhere, which is an assisted living facility, from $1,500 to $2,500 a month. For $2,500 a month, you can rent a place in downtown Miami on maybe the 20th floor somewhere, overlooking the water. And it's a shame, because these are the people that need the help the most, and they should have access to facilities like this to help them. Once somebody gets out of jail, they usually have nothing. IDs, birth certificates, Social Security cards, immigration paperwork. Immigration is also a huge issue in Miami in dealing with people with serious mental health issues and getting them housing, getting them jobs, and getting their paperwork straight with ICE so they can, you know, be part of society and not be rearrested. And we have had clients deported, actually. You know, and some people are just unable to work, and, you know, to put all these pieces together is difficult for a normal human being, let alone when you're battling housing, a serious mental health issue, and you're expected to be across town to do all these things on your own. That's where treatment teams really come in handy and help us out, you know, and provide the support for clients and order these things. We often deal with clients with food shortages. When we put them in these transitional housing, because we don't have many other, you know, places to put them, they can't, you know, get their food stamps or get food. And we have actually housing facilities that go out of their way and go to farm shares and get food for people and, you know, go above and beyond. But, you know, I say it was one of the saddest things I ever saw. Was years ago, I dealt with a pregnant woman that was living with her child in a homeless shelter, and the kid was in kindergarten, and she would take the school breakfast and lunch and take it home with her so her and her mom could eat. And, you know, it's just terrible disparity in the wealth here in Miami. It's incredible. And, you know, somebody that definitely needed the help and wasn't abusing the system. We find transportation issues a big problem. Miami-Dade County is a very large county, and our public transit is not good, to say the least, to get across town. We do not have trains like New York and Philadelphia and Chicago. We have a metro rail and a bus system that when you're waiting 45 minutes to an hour in 90-degree weather to catch a bus and the bus doesn't show up, you may miss your appointment. You may not make it across town. You may not make it to court. When it does rain during hurricane season, my God, you do not want to be waiting out by the bus stop to get a bus. Let me tell you, I've been there. And then dealing with medication and insurance issues. We often have to cover people's medication that don't qualify for Medicaid or insurance until we can figure something out or put it on the community or the treatment provider. And then there's communication issues. Half people don't have cell phones, and that's where we miss our role right now, is being in the community and engaging people that need the help the most. They really do, and I'm missing the community really bad right now. To tell you a little bit about myself in a few minutes, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm an ex-client of the jail diversion program. I grew up in New Jersey, and after high school, I came down to Miami for a better life, and things just did not turn out that way. I had severe mental illness history in my family. I had a bad drug and alcohol problem, and it was hard for me to keep an apartment, to keep a job, and eventually I ended up incarcerated in the Miami-Dade County Jail with a serious mental health issue after being hospitalized, after being in rehabilitations. And it wasn't until this program gave me a chance and identified me with somebody that needed help. And this was 13 years ago, 2007. I went to community treatment. I stayed in three-quarter-way housing. I took medication. I still take medication. I battled addiction in the community, and I got out of it. I got out of it, and I got clean, and I graduated after a lot of struggles. And I remember the day. It was the day before my 24th birthday. I went to close out my court case, and I remember going to go run out that courthouse and do something stupid. And they called me in the office, and they said, "How would you like to work for this program?" And I said, "Excuse me?" And, you know, they made me a peer specialist. And I was blessed to go from an open felony to becoming a employee of the program 8 months later. And I learned a lot and was forced into service. And I had to, you know, it helped my recovery so much to work with what I just went through. And it's been a learning curve. It's been a learning curve these last 12 and a half years. But I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be a part of this program and to help so many people. And I just want anybody listening to know that, you know, jail is not the place to get treatment, and that we need more peer specialists and people bridging the gaps in the community. Keep trying with people and don't get jaded, and don't give up on them, because, you know, I've had people give up on me. And, you know, I'm here today standing. So I think we have a minute or two left before I close. I want to know, Zach, do you think you can play a trailer? This is a trailer to the documentary. I'd love you guys to take a look at it after this webinar. So go ahead, take a look. Zach, it's awesome. It's awesome to have this out here. I want to, when the screen takes a second, share my contact info and invite you guys to watch the documentary for free on PBS, and to keep up the good fight. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and everybody stay safe and blessed throughout this pandemic. Thank you.
Justin, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And I think you can see the comments coming up in our public chat. People loved what you shared with us and appreciate your story. So thank you. And Roxana, awesome information. We've got quite a few questions for you guys, so I'm just going to jump in here. And I'm going to start with one for you, Roxana. A lot of the ones following, I'll ask both of you to weigh in on, but Alexandra Chandel said, "Thank you for your presentation. Could you say who in the examples you gave in Wichita and Philadelphia is doing the direct outreach to people experiencing homelessness? Is it police officers on the teams, or social workers, or someone else?"
That's an excellent question. So both, especially in Wichita, this is such a unique community. The trained officers, they are working in concert with the social service providers to be going to a number of different places in their community to help with connecting those experiencing unsheltered homelessness to services. But obviously, it's based on the need. So if there is a dangerous situation, law enforcement is trained to address with things in crisis. So they'll be going first before a social service provider may follow right after. But if it's a different situation where maybe there can be more trust building through the social service provider, that person may go ahead if it's safe prior to law enforcement, but they always partner up together.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to move on to one from Donna Harrison. So Justin, if you could start this one, and then if you have anything to add, Roxana, you'll be welcome. But what are the eligibility requirements for the Forensic Hospital Diversion Program? Can you explain how that works a little bit more?
So that's a great question. I told you we typically in the jail diversion program deal with misdemeanor and low-level felonies. This would be for a more serious felony, maybe second degree or first degree, and that they had a history of serious mental health issue, or they were not guilty by insanity, and they were incompetent to stand trial, which means a judge ordered the client to be evaluated by a psychiatrist, and that client did not know who their lawyer was. They did not know how court proceedings worked, and that, unfortunately, is the definition of incompetency in the state of Florida, is understanding the court position. And once they are in jail, because most of the forensic clients are in jail a much lengthier time than people with low-level felonies or misdemeanors, maybe even years before they can get transferred to one of those hospitals. That referral, I don't know what state this person is asking from in Florida, would have to go through the managing entity of that county. I think that is it, so thank you.
Thank you. Since it was a specific program, I doubt if you have something to add, Roxana, but you might, so I'm just going to give you the opportunity.
I don't have anything to add. I would just echo with what Justin shared, but thank you.
No worries. All right, well, maybe we'll start with you with this question from Melissa Miller. So have you worked with small cities and counties where the need for resources is disproportionately high and people experiencing homelessness use jail as a way to get shelter in the winter? I certainly think we've probably all seen that. So Roxana, do you have anything to add about small cities and counties?
That there is a growing need in smaller communities when it comes to just funding and resource allocation. And what we at USICH encourage is to work with the regional coordinators that have a better understanding of political dynamics to help with strategizing to see how funding and innovative strategies can be used to, instead of using the jail system as a diversionary mechanism, using another mechanism, thinking through opportunities. I don't want to. I'm being mindful of how much I can share. I would just say I encourage you to go onto our website, usich.gov, so that you can look up the state you're in and reach out to a regional coordinator who may be able to help you better navigate community dynamics. So that's all for me, Sherry.
Oh, thank you, Roxana. And actually, I had started speaking, but was on mute. Oops. So, Justin, do you have anything to add about this, about people experiencing homelessness using jail as a way to get shelter in winter?
Well, if it is not, it's very ineffective in our community to do that. And you know, I know that you know, as far as to get shelter, I don't see it as a person in their right mind's first option, which is just more proof that people need to get more resources and help so they wouldn't have to turn to that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So Michelle Baxter asks, could you all describe the level of data sharing used for these interventions? I don't know who'd like to start this.
I could chime in.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
No, I didn't know who the question was directed to, but
no, I don't think it was
first.
directed to anyone. Yeah, so
Okay.
Roxana, you can go first, and then level of data sharing used for some of these interventions. Do you know?
Okay, so if this question is asking about the privacy concerns, I will say, so I'm going to bring up the Wichita community again. They are involved with their own community's continuum of care program, and what ends up happening, there are memorandums of understanding where the department and the homelessness service provider and other entities involved have an understanding that there are just certain information the police force would not have access to, just in order to respect the clients that they're serving, to respect their own privacy concerns. So having memorandums of understanding when it comes to cross-collaboration is important. As far as like the specific details, it's on a community-by-community basis. So that's all I have here.
Great. Justin, do you have anything to add about data sharing in your project?
Yeah, we do a lot of it, and the biggest collaboration is between the courts and treatment providers that are outpatient treatments and inpatient treatments, and the best way to do that is to get our clients to sign a release of information so it's up to HIPAA standards so that we're all on the same page. And if a client wants to participate in diversion, they have to give this information so we can better serve them. So that's a big part of our effective results, and it's on the client's behalf, who is ultimately in charge of their recovery.
Thank you. Wonderful answer. All right, and this one goes to both of you, and Justin, maybe I can have you start this one out and then hand it over to Roxana. So Victoria Pham is asking, are crisis intervention teams similar to homeless outreach teams with law enforcement and PERT?
Oh, yeah, they're similar. They're similar, but
Okay.
A homeless outreach team, I believe, would be more directive at getting somebody to a shelter. And that we have one I'm very close with in Miami Beach that works with law enforcement, and they have civilians that engage homeless and get them to treatment or shelter, and treatment as in drug or alcohol treatment. They will have a CIT officer involuntary hospitalize someone if it's needed. But the difference in specifically CIT is that for the majority of the officers that don't have that resource in Miami-Dade County, is they're diverting to a crisis, a mental health crisis facility for that client. And it is up to the social workers at that hospital to link to housing, not the police directly.
Thank you. Roxana, anything to add?
I would just add that for many communities, the HOT teams or the homeless outreach teams, they're really focused on community engagement. So they don't have that clinical piece of that crisis interventions, although they're trained police officers, so just by nature of the work, they do have some level of background, but CIT teams, they're more trained to deal with a number of different crises, where homeless outreach teams, their specific focus is with connecting homelessness and housing services and working in concert with the homelessness service providers to get folks into a stable housing situation rather than remaining on the street.
Thank you. All right. Here's a question for you, Roxana. I think this came up in your presentation. So Chelsea Jameson is asking, what trigger words do you often use on referrals that get faster communication on certain clients?
So go ahead,
you, Justin?
Yeah,
go ahead, Justin. I'm sorry, I was thinking that one was you.
Oh, I'll be brief. As far as trigger words, the word trigger can be a trigger for people. we try to use clear-cut medical language and look at the facts as far as somebody's eligibility or their previous medical history, and we have great assessments and great people that do the assessments to clarify some of this language so we can get them the right services they need. It's all about, for as far as to get somebody the help they need, they have to be, have an eligible charge, have a history of mental health, and take medication. And the more that client shares in the assessment, the more we know, and we're able to request medical history to provide better treatment moving forward. So it's pretty technical, and it's not just, we think somebody might be, we really do this thoroughly.
Thank you. Roxana, anything to add?
Not on my end. Nope.
Okie dokie. So we got a couple questions about vocational programs. So we've got one from Jesse Roberts saying, do you and your program work with vocational programs to assist in diversion from jail, like IPS Works program or anything like that?
Yes, we do work with vocational programs. We work with homeless shelters that often have college courses for culinary, and a place in Miami called Vocational Rehab, which gets people jobs at restaurants and whatnot. And for people willing to work, there is a lot of opportunity. We have other places that do training for construction through a local college called FIU, Florida International University. They have electrician courses, carpenter courses, and for those people that are able to work, they can take advantage of things like that.
Thank you. All right. Roxana, anything to add? All right. I'm just going to move on. So Patricia Waddington is asking, how many people are on your team for your jail diversion program, Justin? Do you have workers in the jails and also in the community?
Yes, the ones in the jail were on the slide that I provided. That was the jail in-reach team. That are the social workers and the people doing assessments in the jail. And as far as outside, we have 3 different funding sources. One is through Miami-Dade County, one is through the managing entity of South Florida, and one is through, I work for Community Health of South Florida, which is contracted to work for the program. And I would say we have about 20 to 25 employees, including management, and we all play a different role. But the success is that we try to get funding from other places and not just put it all on the county, which makes us more diverse as well.
Thank you. And this one, Roxana, maybe you can start this one out. So do you, have you advocated and gotten results for requesting officers to get CIT or similar training?
Well, so since I'm a part of a federal agency, I'm not at that direct service work anymore. But in a past life, when I was working as a prosecutor and working with law enforcement and just generally attorneys, when it comes to training, in the community I was in, that kind of CIT training was available. It was just a matter of requesting it in the prosecutor side. And as far as for the police officers, the county had a robust training program for the police officers, so it was a matter of them contracting with outside organizations to get it done, organizations such as SAMHSA, HRN, that would host a number of different trainings.
Thank you. So we're just about out of time here. So I'm going to do one last question, and it's directed to you, Justin, from Carla Grillo. She says, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring journey. Was there a particular resource that helped you or that led you to your turning point?
It was many resources. It was a lot of support, which everybody needs, and it was the final decision of myself in the middle of a relapse while I was a client with the program, and I said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we want to catch people when they're at that point and catch them when they're ready to fall, and that's what happened to me. So it's a combination of supports from treatment teams, from family, from when somebody's had enough, and I think that was my time, and I'm thankful I was able to take advantage of it.
Oh, thank you. I think we're all grateful that you shared your story. So thank you for that. We are really out of time, so I am going to thank our speakers and not even pose a final question to them, but I would encourage you to reach out to any one of us if you have questions or anything else that you'd like to discuss.